Next is Book, and I do have a little idea for her. So in this rewritten, Book isn't on just not. I feel like she doesn't really have a purpose in that team. So she would instead be on Are You Okay? She would remember most of the characters in this team, as they were almost all part of Team No Name from BFDIA. She would remember how bossy Golf Ball was like, which would then translate into Book's bossy attitude in BFB. So, despite being in a team full of people she was once enemies with, she would now have to work with them to make sure they wouldn't be put up for elimination. She would have some beef with characters like Golf Ball, and especially Fries. And alongside that, Pillow would still be with Book, meaning Pillow is also on Are You Okay? You could also explore more of the friendship Book and Pillow first had in TPOT 1. Maybe Book would want to try to understand Pillow more, only to be left with even more questions about her entire character.
Pillow, where are you going?
I don't usually know.
What does that mean? Pillow?
An interesting duo for sure. Bottle is the next character down the list, and she surely is an interesting case. At first, it seemed like TPOT was not gonna do anything with her, but then in TPOT 3, she begins to be somewhat involved in the storyline with Clock and Winner, trying to make Clock understand that he's being too obsessive over Winner. And then there's this very specific scene.
Yellowface has got this, Clock, all under control. Clock?
Yeah, the performance is gonna be great.
Don't push anyone, Clock.
Oops. Sorry, what?
I've never seen Bottle act on a serious note before. Bottle's always been the type of character to act silly and goofy because, well, she's that type of character. But then she very calmly tells Clock to not push anyone. That's such an interesting side of Bottle that we've never seen, and in this rewritten You Bet I will explore this idea much more. The idea is that Bottle would be the first one to try and settle the situation between Winner and Clock, mostly trying to talk to Clock about how his behavior is not a really healthy one. There's definitely a lot of things that can be done with her, but for now her main thing will be to talk more with Clock about this problem of his. Cake is next, and he's an interesting case. Despite in the past not really liking Cake, I've recently come to like him more, and I think I have a couple of ideas for him in this rewritten. For starters, remember in TPOT 1, where Cake would lose Eggy and Clock, thinking that they are as friends, despite never actually talking together.
You're not seriously passing up this opportunity, right? Well, suit yourself, but I'm not gonna miss out.
Wait! You two are my friends! You can't split up!
Cake, we never even do things together. It's okay.
In this scene we can see that Eggy realized that being on the same team as Cake didn't really translate into becoming friends, so it's clear that Cake just assumed that because they were all on the same team, they were all friends with each other, and when Eggy told him this, it would affect Cake a lot harder here. So, to avoid having Cake do the same mistake, Cake would try a lot more to actually befriend the people in his team, so that he can have actual friends this time around. So that's Cake's main plot in this rewritten, but that's not all. Since Cake would still remain on just not, I would have Cake be particular friends with Nickel, but what would I do with Nickel and Cake? Well, one thing that Trials made me notice is this clip right here.
How about a pile of stuff? I love it, Cake!
What does that mean?
Oh, I think I follow. It's always fun to pick up some silly prizes and things at an amusement park.
Thank you. I struggled to put it into words.
We can see that Cake does struggle sometimes with wording things, so I would have Nickel act more as Cake's quote-unquote translator. He would explain what Cake usually means when he's struggling to word things out, so that's a pretty wholesome friendship between the two of them that would be quite nice to see. Next up is Clock, and this is kind of an obvious thing, but I would mostly continue the Winner and Clock storyline. Not much to add, since this is the main thing with Clock and Teapot. Cloudy's the next character, and I would mostly have him act as Balloony's buddy, but I would also have him interact more with Rocky, as Rocky and Balloony are all ex-Beep members, so they would definitely like to stick together as a trio. And as another thing, it would be interesting to see Cloudy to be one of the first people to actually make Clock notice his behavior.
Hey guys, I found Rocky while I was recovering Icy, so...
Winner! Bottle is dead! You gotta recover Bottle!
Oh. Guess I'm doing that then.
Hey, you could have let them stay a little longer.
And finally, I will have him use more his collection for some kind of advantage in the challenges, but not too much to the point this would be the only Cloudy trait, just enough so that people remember that Cloudy does indeed have a collection. Coiny is up next, and he will have two main things in the season. First of all, he's gonna act as the true team leader of his team. I've always thought of Coiny as a pretty good leader, especially during his time in BFDIA, And since Pin would somewhat remain with the same cheating storyline, Coiny would have to step up and act as the new team leader for teammates. And after the team leader idea, there's also the whole situation with Pin. Now I definitely see why people would want me to completely remove the cheating arc, but the problem with this storyline isn't the idea itself, but it's rather the execution. As many people have pointed out, Pin never acted mean or yelled to her teammates, so to see her do that and overall act much more entitled was not good to see. So to fix this situation with Coiny and Pin, I would mostly have Coiny still use more questionable methods to win challenges, just like in episode 2 and 3. And then when Pin would see this, she definitely would feel a lot more conflicted about this. Because of this would eventually lead to a conclusion where Coiny would try to understand Pin's point of view, and have a great wholesome scene between the two characters, just like in BFB6.
Just look at you and me. We've got a whole BFDIA's worth of experience under our collective belt, and even when it comes time, we won't hesitate to let it show. There's nothing to be afraid of, Pin. I promise.
That really means a lot.
It's nothing. Now, wanna go gosh about our favorite cube with the rest of us losers?
You bet.
Donut is the next character on the list, and in this timeline, he isn't in teammates. This time, he's in just not. It turns out that Nayli would actually accept Donut's offer to stick together, therefore having Donut and Barfbag in just not.
Well, I know I'm sticking with Barfbag.
And I know I'm sticking with Bommy.
Cool, so you want to stay on the same team?
Yeah?
So, what would Donut do in this team? I would mostly have him act as the straight man of the team, since just not never feels like there's someone who leads the team, and it's rather a more confusing group of people. So Donut would easily take the leader role of this team, and like we mentioned before, he would be interested in finding out more about what Barfbag's liquids inside her can make her act like. So he would sometimes take her in some places to test more of this theory of his. In addition to this, Donut would be the one to try and dissolve the whole situation between Bommy, Nayli and Taggy, even if this wouldn't work at first. Also, remember what Donut's diary said about Bommy? Well, now that Donut's on the same team as Bommy, maybe that can actually be expanded upon in some way. I still don't know how, but I'll see what I can do about that. Right after Donut, we have Eggy. Now you may know that I am a huge fan of Eggy, so much so that I've made an over hour-long character analysis video. So with that in mind, I do have a lot of things that could be done with the character in this rewritten. First of all, I would have Eggy act as basketball's frenemy, as in she would be friends with basketball. But they would also have very different ideas on how to win challenges in each episode, so these two would always have this friendly rivalry, to see who would have a better idea to win this challenge or that challenge. Another thing related to Eggy would be Winner's interest in her. As we see in TPOT 2, Winner gets interested in Eggy, and so they would want to maybe learn more about them in some way, which not only would help to make Eggy more relevant, but it would also work with Clock and Winner's storyline, since Clock would probably get really jealous that Winner would want to be interested in Eggy out of all people. So yeah, rest assured that Eggy will have lots of things for this rewritten, don't you worry. Up next is Eraser, and he will work quite differently in this rewritten, as he's not in Are You OK? You see, in this timeline, instead of Pen going to Eraser, it would be Eraser to join Pen's team, which would be Death Pact again. Now, I've seen lots of people complain that Death Pact again is just a bunch of idiots, who are perfectly fine with losing challenges so that they can prevent death. So to not have everyone think like that, I would have Eraser be on this team, and considering that Eraser has no problem killing people, and he definitely would not listen to the team's rules, he would continue to go and kill people during challenges, which would make the rest of the team pretty suspicious of his behavior. This would push Pen to try and cover up Eraser's killing accidents, which would create more tension within the team for sure.